Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the formal meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education. It is Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. I don't have anyone here to take the roll yet, so I'm going to give you some jokes, maybe a little jazz hands. We got people online. We got people here in the room. We don't have board member Bryden tonight, but she's the only one we're missing. So whenever you're ready, Deputy Superintendent, can you please call the roll? Okay, thank you. Thank you. And your comments were awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh.
I was going to say, shine. Be here for roll.
Correct. Yeah, be here for roll. Can we give her credit because she was here for the first part? Okay, let's get going. We gotta.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So I'll begin roll call. So Member Ali.
Present.
Member Bilyeu.
Here.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Present.
Member Bryden. Member Figdor.
Here.
Member Grant.
Here.
Member Noor.
Here.
Member Opperman.
Here.
Student Representative Kintiba. Student Representative Knight. Student Representative McDonald.
Here.
Student Representative Rosado.
He should get credit too.
Yeah. Okay. And then Chair Lenz.
Here. So now we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag,
United States of
America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqiyik, or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy, or people of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as a district, we are committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. As a reminder of our mission, the Portland Public Schools is responsible for ensuring a challenging, relevant, and joyful education that empowers every learner to make a difference in the world. We build relationships among families, educators, and the community to promote the healthy development and academic achievement of every learner. And I'm actually, I think because we have folks here to talk about buildings for our future, we're going to go into that first, and then we'll do any public comment after that, just because I know we were a little behind schedule. Apologies, but great for public engagement. So I'm going to turn it over to Board Member Figdor to give an introduction.
All right. Superintendent Scallon, Deputy Superintendent Townsend, my fellow board members, we have reached a tremendous milestone. 6.25 years after Portland voted overwhelmingly to pass the 4-school bond, we have certificates of completion for all 4 elementary schools: Longfellow, Lyseth, Presumpscot, and Reiki.
Can we clap? That's good.
We've transformed the 4 rundown school buildings into 21st century learning environments, and we did it on budget and ahead of schedule. That's right. We transformed the 4 schools on budget and ahead of schedule. Nothing stopped our team. Not the pandemic, not supply chain problems, not escalating costs, not educating our students through the construction, and not countless other hurdles that we faced along the way. Tonight, I'm going to start with a little history of why we undertook these projects. Then our team from Harriman, the architectural and engineering firm that we partnered with on all 4 schools, will show you what we accomplished. Then we'll hear from Angie Taylor, the principal at Presumpscot, and Lori Babinski, one of the lead teachers at Reiki, about what the renovations have meant for their students and staff. Lastly, I want to recognize some of the many people who got us here today, and we'll wrap up with your questions. In 2015, 2016, and 2017, people all across the city came together to pass a $64 million bond. the largest in Portland's history, to renovate the city's four most rundown schools, elementary schools. The four school buildings failed to meet modern educational standards. The schools were built in the mid-1900s, had never been renovated, and maintenance on the buildings had been deferred year after year. Students were taught in hallways, custodial closets, mechanical closets, and dilapidated trailers. Noise and extreme heat and cold routinely interrupted learning. The schools lacked the physical infrastructure for modern technology, failed to meet safety and security standards, and were not ADA compliant. When I first got involved, I wasn't yet on the school board. I was a parent at Reiki, and I'll give you a couple of examples of the conditions there. Reiki had no walls between the classrooms. It was so noisy that children had to wear these headsets so they could read. These are all too familiar, right? Special ed at Reiki was taught in a utility room with no windows, a ladder to the roof, and two utility closets containing loud electrical equipment and internet systems with multiple wires draped throughout the room. When I started to talk with people in the community about the poor conditions at Reiki, I met earlier generations of parents who had come together to try to repair the school. One former parent, Steve Weatherhead, told me that when his kids were at Reiki 20 years earlier, the electrical outlets were shorting out and the windows were so yellowed that you couldn't see in or out. He and other parents got materials donated to address some of the biggest problems at the school, which included getting partition walls donated to create distinct classrooms that were still the only internal walls in the school when my kids were there all these years later. For more than 2 decades, Portland's leaders had talked about renovating the elementary schools. We held 7 official task forces on elementary school facilities in 1995, 1998, 2001, 2005, 2009, 2012, and 2016. And we hired architectural firms 6 different times to create plans for the renovations in 1994, 1999, 2007, 2008, 2012, and 2016. And still, city leaders said no. School construction is a local responsibility, but Portland had not made a major investment in our school buildings in a quarter of a century. The state has a major capital school construction program for schools in the absolute worst condition across the state, and we just kept waiting and waiting for our schools to be the very worst so the state would pick up the bill. It was a fool's errand. We knew it then, and it's all too clear now. In the time that we passed the bond and rebuilt 4 schools here in Portland, the state has finished construction on exactly 0 schools statewide from their 2017-2018 rating cycle. 9 schools across the entire state were in poor enough condition to be approved for funding. Construction has started on just 3 of those schools. So that's why we took on these projects. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mark Lee and Lisa Salwin to lead us through the presentation.
Very good. Thank you very much, Emily. And thank you all of you for hosting us tonight and what seems a little unreal for us in that we've been with these projects for 6 or so years here. And we're getting close to very, very close to the end. So amidst all the challenges, and Emily spoke to some of those, there's a bit of cause for celebration. So we're pretty excited to share with you a little bit of the outcome of that hard work and investment on so many people's part. So we're just going to give you an overview of the 4 schools and some of the root aspects of the design that we undertook. We'll talk a little bit about the overall project budget and where that stands right now, and then the project schedule, and then a big thank you to everyone. And so the BFOF was really about addressing a lot of deferred maintenance, but it was also about improving the educational environment. And that was the sort of aspect of 21st century learning. What does future learning really need? And how has it changed from when the schools were designed back in the mid of the 19th century or so? the very first aspect that we undertook with all of these schools is really understanding how they were rooted in their communities. And so we undertook a series of community forums to develop an understanding of really what made them uniquely part of each of their communities. And through that process, we developed, or the communities developed, what we called the design statement. And it was really a sense of what was special and unique about them that would guide us in the design as we went through the architectural aspects of the project. So the first one we did was the Lyseth Elementary School, and everyone who's familiar with Lyseth will understand how it sort of evolved to the final design statement, which was a nurturing community garden where everyone grows, learns, and explores. And we were really impressed when we first toured it, before any work had even done, at the incredible amount of work that had gone on around the school in terms of all the different programs that involve the outdoors and both the natural environment that was enhanced through a lot of work with the PTO and the staff and students. And so that aspect of the natural world really came to embody a lot of what Lyseth was all about. And then the school itself, it was built at a time when apparently the main entrance wasn't something that you wanted people to know where it was. And so the picture on the lower left indicates that was the front of the building. And thank goodness it had a sign next to it, I guess, behind the tree. But the new entrance was there for very functional reasons, in that we wanted a very safe and secure building with a primary entrance. But it really should also reflect a little bit about, this is an elementary school in a spirit of the children that go there. And when you come into the school, there's the welcome. You can see on the lower left, that was what you walked into before. There was a little glass block corner on the main office area and the sign that said welcome. But it didn't really feel very welcoming. And then part of what we did was develop that whole area, that when you came into the school, that you should really feel like you're being welcomed into the school itself. And so that's the main image that we're seeing here. And it really becomes a wonderful area for students and staff to be able to just touch down. It's a place to be able to see a reflection of themselves as they come in, and sort of it's infused with some natural light. And so really the spirit that you feel when you first come into the school really becomes evident right here at this main lobby area. And then we had a very constrained site, and so where we placed the school gymnasium was an important consideration, and it was sort of rotated and inserted in the middle of what was before the courtyard between two wings. And by inserting it and putting this connector with the library off of this corridor that connected from the main lobby, we really divided that courtyard into two smaller courtyards, which really became these wonderful locations that bring the outdoors indoors, really. They become these smaller spaces that become functional, safe outdoor areas that are really very much part of the school, as you can see witnessed here. And this is from the other end, right outside of the gymnasium itself. Again, creating spaces for pin-up, spaces for students to touch down. And then, again, the spirit of what it's like to be a child. So these bold, colorful forms that are on the walls and ceilings and in the floor. And then this is what those little courtyards can become and sometimes are. They're just wonderful little safe spaces to be able to take the learning beyond the classroom. We also look carefully at the types of spaces. So it's not simply just about classrooms and the number of desks that we have. It's also about really thinking of spaces that support a range of functions, both for academic learning as well as social emotional development. And some of those are simple spaces outside of the classrooms to touch down where pull-out work can happen, or one-on-one or collaboration, or even what smaller intimate spaces. This one on the right-hand side is in the library, and it's sort of a great little cave space, if you will, to kind of get a book and sit down and something that's a little bit more intimate. Another wonderful reflection on again, a childlike environment. This is the library as well. And then finally, after I don't know how many years of surviving with the Gymacafetorium, they have two separate spaces, which they probably look back now and not even understand how they ever made it happen before. But But this really becomes also, if you will, almost a den or living room of the school. This is a place for the community to gather for functions. It's a place to recreate, and it brings just a tremendous amount more flexibility to the school day. And then the transformation of the old gym and cafetorium into just a cafeteria, which is nice too. And that's also another space to celebrate community. Lisa's going to share a little bit about, so we had the Advantage Lyseth Finnet was the first one. It was sort of the guinea pig project, if you will. It started everything. And then we moved into the next 3 schools. Lisa's going to share, we don't have quite as the range of imagery that we had on Lyseth, but she'll show some of the befores and afters of the Longfellow project, Lisa.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I do want to say one thing about the overall BFOF. I was listening to the earlier conversation about budgets and creativity, and this is definitely one that we had to exercise that strategy. When the BFOF was passed and we took on the project, the first one being Lyseth, the design that was done previously, we estimated it with the dollars of 2018 when we started, and we could do about half the scope. So we had to get very creative and have some tough conversations, like all of you are faced with budgets, around what was incorporated and really look at where the most value was for the students and staff. And so you'll see that throughout all 4 of these schools. But what Mark talked about, that design statement, what's really unique about it is it's from each community. These are community schools. They're embedded in their local communities, and every community has a different culture and every school has a different culture. And so you'll see that through the design statement as well as how we executed the design. But through the design statement, the essence of Longfellow is really about a neighborhood center, community integrated into the neighborhood, that walkability, and a historic asset and architecture. They didn't really want us to do much with the exterior, and also really recognize the nod to the history within. So different aesthetic, and their statement reads, nurturing the roots of community to grow the hearts and minds of learners for a dynamic world. So in the bottom left corner, you can see the classrooms before. So the classrooms, there was a heavy focus on the classrooms in this project. And so these classrooms all received new casework, flooring, technology, teaching walls, ceilings, lights, and you can see the difference it makes just in the brightness of the space. Same amount of daylight. In putting in colors, which the red is actually a passive strategy for safety and security as well. This is looking down the hallway. The left is out by the pre-K addition with a nice vista out to Deering High School in the field. So a nice connection back outside to the surrounding community. And the original colors of the floor was something that the community wanted to maintain. So we just found more modern materials to execute that color palette in the flooring, new lighting and ceiling materials, and some paint in the hallways. One of the big things we did at Longfellow was an addition to provide different services that they didn't have, as well as a pre-K classroom. This is the addition that you see here with a little pop-out window, kind of a modern bay window, if you will, in the pre-K classroom. And then we talked about ADA accessibility, providing a new accessible entrance that is connected to the main entry. So the main entry was relocated before the ramp put you into the gymnasium and was not the same experience for all students. And with that, Mark's going to go through Reiki.
Yeah, and I think the design statement doesn't have anything about earpods, but it probably could. So the design statement for the Reiki school really did center around this notion of its connection to the community as well, to create an inclusive environment that celebrates diversity, fosters collaboration, embraces nature, and integrates into the urban fabric. And so that really captures, I think, to this day, a bit of that essence of what Reiki is all about. So likewise, I guess, again, kind of that same issue that we saw at at the Lights School, this one actually had a ramp that came up over the top of the building and then down, and then the entrance was somehow tucked underneath the ramp. And so who knows what those architects were thinking back then. So part of this was to really create that, again, that safe, secure, and accessible entrance that we did at all of the 4 schools that we did. And you can see what that expression is on these images right here. Classrooms, really, this was the biggest transformation that they had these soft partitions that Emily spoke of that divided, and furniture that divided the spaces. And we were there in front of one of the stay in place security exercises at one point, and this notion that there was no enclosure anywhere and that noise traveled throughout the entire thing, and the center's sense of vulnerability. And just the environment, the classroom environment, is transformed by the idea that you have isolated acoustics and walls and real classrooms, and so that was wonderful too. The other aspect that we all talk about too, the ceiling of the old Reiki and these open concepts. This one looked very industrial. You can see it in the lower right hand image. It was a waffle slab, right? And so it had all these little cells and the lights were tucked up inside of it, and acoustically it did nothing because all the sound did was bounce right off on that concrete. So it was so nice to actually have a ceiling, not because we like, suspended tile ceilings, just because it was acoustically nice and sort of it was bright and clean, and we weren't looking at the waffle slab anymore. We also looked at a lot of these variety of space types, and so we created group rooms that were helped define classroom neighborhoods, but also provided spaces for collaboration and group work. And then one of the big spaces that did remain open is that center volume, which is the library. And it was sort of infused with new materials and created a lot more functional spaces off of it. And so all the library function stays there, but we actually created a lot of little eddies and pockets to be able to sit down and read books and do other group work together. And you can see some of that actually in the background on the left-hand side. So back to Lisa.
I feel like we're passing a baton. So the last, but definitely not least school in the presentation is Presumpscot Elementary. So Presumpscot, the statement reads, a welcoming, diverse family, creating safe spaces for learners to collaborate, grow, and explore. And I have to say, we were really excited when Anj wanted to put the statement in the lobby space along with everybody else. So this statement actually is in the school and really part of the end product. This is the new entry to the Presumpscot School. We call it a butterfly roof. It's a really fun, whimsical roof for the school and the students. It provides a secure vestibule, and the addition on the right-hand side provides much needed administrative functions. And one of the big things we did here was add a cafeteria, because they had a Gemma cafetorium as well. And we also provided separate art and music rooms and pre-K and kindergarten, which are all in portables. So you can see here in the imagery a more up close photo of the main entry, as well as inside the lobby. That is the new lobby space with the design statement on the wall, a great gathering place for students and staff. I hear different stories from this school and students singing in that space, dancing in that space, gathering and learning. So a huge difference from what they had before. A lot of the kindergarten and pre-K classrooms were in portables, or there were classrooms in portables. So we were able to create all the classrooms in the school, and we added the pre-K and kindergarten to make them the right size, because those need to be larger, and we're able to be playful with the windows, having them at different heights. Lots of photos been shared with us of children kind of in that window space down by the ground looking out at the playground. And then you can see the addition in the upper right is the art, music, and new cafeteria. This, I heard a lot about different providers in the earlier talk. This is a beautiful picture and statement shared with us from the school social worker. Something that evolved through this project was the number of homeless students. And what this school has is a new nurses area with a shower and washer and dryer and an area for snacks. And the difference it makes in these kiddos' lives is huge. And kudos to all the work that the school is doing to make a difference. So that folks that can't read this, it says with the little girl skipping down the new hallway to her kindergarten class. This is what happens when you meet the basic needs in school. You offer showers, clean clothing, whether laundry is being washed, and protein-filled snacks. They literally skip back to class. Our district has never endured the waves of homelessness, of homeless students as we have this year. I never imagined showers and laundry being the first two things I do first thing when I get to work, but here we are. So not only is the staff, but the building is able to help in that as well. And so those colorful boxes are a connection between the pre-K kindergarten classroom wing into the cafeteria. So there's a great visual synergy between the two, and the kids can sit in these boxes and meet with students. We hear they're also great pull-off space to have conversations, maybe pulling people from recess and having a one-on-one chat with having to go all the way back into the school. This is the new cafeteria space. You can see in the lower right-hand picture, that was the cafeteria gym with all of the tables along the side for gym class. And now they have, and I'm sure Anj will explain some of the beautiful community meetings that they have in this space in their school. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you for
Great.
budget.
All right. We think this is the last baton. So the BFOF funds were, as Emily stated, they were the largest, I think, capital investment in the Portland schools in many years. And so how were those funds spent? Well, the majority of them was spent on the construction. So of the $64 million, you can see that, 55, almost 56 million is the construction itself, the big blue area. And then fees and services are a smaller portion of it. We purchased new technology and furniture. Furniture is still actually on its way. And that was one of the last items that we purchased. And then there's still a tiny little sliver remaining just to make sure that there's still funds to cover any of the bills that haven't arrived yet. And so we're happy to report that of the $64 million bond right now, we're under that total by a sliver. A little bit about the construction schedule too, just very quickly. So as Emily said, originally when they looked at this, we projected how long it was going to take to actually do these projects, and so it was at that time contemplated that we would do a design of the building, then start the construction, take on the next design, do the next construction and the next one. Well, the concern is what happens when you get to the last one, and who's making sure that there's still enough money to get to the last one when you go through that. And so we worked really closely with the building committee and the school board to understand how to most equitably spend those funds across all of the projects. And so the decision was made, we could also save money, because every year that you go out, you lose more purchase power for the school itself, because escalation in construction costs chew away at that. And so the sooner we could get them all out to bid, the more that we could assure that we could address things equitably, and that also that we were getting a better value for the taxpayer dollar. And so that led to the decision to design them all at once and to construct them all at once, not without a great deal of effort, because that's the work that instead of spreading it out, it all happens at once. And so a lot of work for the entire team, and it was a great team, lots of people here that lived through all of that. What it also did, though, we actually finished the construction of all 4 schools ahead of what was projected. And so that's also quite an accomplishment. And again, the real benefit of that is, yeah, it was really tough to live through, but it's done sooner, and that you get a better value because you actually procured all of the construction services sooner. So that a little bit about that. I think the last bit of it is sort of the big thank you. As Emily said that there's just so many people that gave so much of their time and effort to getting to the point where the bond was, to pushing the bond forward, and then supporting the work that happened afterward, living through the construction. And so, four building committees. There were a few nights that was a little tricky. We were constantly on a Zoom call, probably till after this hour. But so from the design professionals, we want to say thank you for Portland Public Schools putting their trust in us to really be involved in this. We're going to try to figure out what to do now that we don't have this this going forward, but we'll stay involved. And this is a great community, and we've been proud to be a part of it. And so I'll turn it over. I don't know who wants to go next here, but love to have a few words from some of the folks that actually had to endure. So,
Okay, great. What's up, Lori? Hi, I'm Angie Taylor, principal for Zumscott. I'm talking a little bit about the sort of the impact of space. So especially around, but I think this is really kind of an important conversation, especially as we talk about budgets. So before, it was a long haul. Let me just say that first, okay? This is all like, rainbows and unicorns. There was a lot of before that. Right? In any case, so I was fortunate to be connected with Rue, right, in Portland. And so prior to our construction being done, I would go into that building, and the feeling you would get there was like anyone could dream anything, right? Because they had the space to do it. They had the technology to do it. And I've always wondered, honestly, why our schools are not more like that, right? Because like we want kids to come into our schools and think about problems and, figure out design solutions and work together as a group. I kind of feel that way now as I walk into Zumscott. It has that vibe, right? You walk into the front of the building and it feels like, I think what you said is exactly true. It feels welcoming, and it feels like everyone is a part of that community. I think one of the biggest, changes for us, definitely is the cafeteria. I think it has the most probably state-of-the-art technology is in our cafeteria. We can hold our community meetings in there, which are all led by students, including now, we've expanded to include a tech team. So they take care of all the tech within the cafeteria. And at lunches, I have 6-year Cole every time I walk into K running up to me, telling me that the audio is ready to go and the video is ready when I want to use it. We've been able to, like, in that space, I really do think build community in really cool ways, right? People make fun of me a little bit, but karaoke is definitely on, right? The agenda every single week. We have, the space that doesn't have to be moved into a gym. So we have, analog gaming. So we've got games that come out once a week. We can play a movie, right? So when we think about like the things like, clothing and all of that stuff, we got to think deeper. Like kids should have the same experiences regardless of who they are. So we get to actually bring, right, the movies that a lot of people get to experience out there to our community at lunchtime, and everyone gets to enjoy it. We can't have candy, although someone did bring a Coke today, which is not okay, and we know that. In addition to our community space, again, if we really think about, like when I go back to Rue and I think about design, I think if you have an art room that is actually a classroom space, right, that is somewhat transformed to an art room, it's not an art room. And so now we have an art room where you walk in and you actually feel like an artist, right? They have the cabinet space to put supplies in, to pull them out, to engage students. This week, I was walking down the hallway and there are these little clay pots in the little windows, right? It's the first time ever we've used our kiln for Zumscott because we didn't have the technology to do that. And you guys designed a space that we could actually do that. And that's one of the examples. Our music space, right? It used to be also, actually, he used to move from classroom to classroom. Now he has a space that he can have like instruments in, right? And he can engage kids in such a different way than we could before. The kindergarten and pre-K space is great. Awesome, right? I mean, it allows bathroom use and all of that. We also have projectors in every room that may seem like really small, but it isn't. When we think, again, if we're in like, This is like 2024. If we want our kids, right, moving in the direction of everyone else in the nation, then our schools have to actually mirror that. And we're getting there. I'm not sure we're all the way there, but we're getting there. When I hear about the new high school possibility, I get super excited. So now I seriously walk through our building. I think so do our teachers. Oh, I was gonna say this, I forgot this. Here's what's really important. So pre-construction, we had no space for coaches, for special education teachers, for ESOL teachers to actually go into a space, have a moment to be quiet, right? And to consider, right, curriculum and instruction, and or even to pull kids to do intervention. We didn't have that. I was in a closet literally for 2 years, which is a little weird, honestly, when you think about it, right? Funny. And also our social worker was in that closet as well for a little time. That's just not appropriate, right, for schools. So I do feel like now when we walk into our newly designed place, it is a cool place for our community. And I honestly think it allows us the space to really engage students in some curriculum that gets them excited, because we can do that now, where I think before in the space that we had, we really couldn't. So thank you so much for staying this late to hear that. And I appreciate it.
So you've heard a lot about Reiki already, but I'm going to share a little bit more about the transformation from the teachers and students lens. So most of you know it was built in the 70s, open concept. You heard that here. You got to see our noise canceling headphones. But the other piece to think about is that over 55% of our students are MLs, so language learners. And so there was always this huge tension between knowing how you need to provide opportunities to talk and discourse and collaborate, and being in a building where the teacher next door was telling you to hush, that it was too noisy. And so we've had this tension for years around what teaching and learning should look like, and then what the building, how that kind of cramped what we knew we needed to do. And the PTO actually bought those noise canceling headsets for us one year when it was just too, as the population grew from 300 and some to 400 some, it just got worse and worse and worse in terms of the noise. So I'll echo Angie in that school spaces invite learning. We now have walls and doors. So you're excited about all of your things. We're excited about the walls and doors. We're excited about technology. We're excited about having spaces where kids can come together as a whole group and hear one another talk, can be in a small group, can work quietly. And so it's just been transformation for the school. The second piece that Reiki was really worried about was safety. We did not have a safe entrance where we felt like the office staff could see students coming in. So that's been a big change. Not only do you know where the entrance is, but the office staff can see people walking in, they can see the kids coming in, they can greet them and buzz them. So that's been a huge piece. We have a new nurse's office, so similar to what you have. We have a bathroom there, we have sinks there, we have a cot with a screen. During COVID, the nurse's office was in our teacher's space, our only teacher's room, because we needed a space that was big enough. So now our nurse has a space. We're excited about our bathrooms. Before this, we had 60 staff with 3 one-stall bathrooms and always a line. So now we have bathrooms for staff, we have bathrooms for students, we have a neutral gender bathroom that we've never had before. We have bathrooms in our kindergarten rooms. We have sinks in our kindergarten rooms. So all those things that we didn't have that you would expect a school to have, we have now. I think the one piece that I think we've all loved is that aesthetically, it still looks like Reiki. So you saw the library, you saw how it's open. And so Herman was able to hold that piece about Reiki, but then still give us classrooms. But I want to just share 2 moments that are going to just stay with me forever. So it was a juggle, and it was a juggle to have all these phases, to have teachers pack and unpack and move and be a step ahead of the construction. We were making new exit plans to get out of the building because new hallways were blocked. And so for the last few years, it's been quite a juggle with the teachers. And the first moment that will stay with me is when we walked the staff up to see phase 1 and the grade 3 wing. That was just to stand there with staff that had been through all the juggling to try to imagine what was here before these classrooms were here was amazing. And then to watch those kids walk in for the first time, just, that piece of having this building with partitions that was always kind of messy with clutter. We had a wonderful buzz, but it never looked like a space that necessarily welcomed learning. The second moment for me was not this fall, but the previous fall, when the library was partially finished. So before that, if you walked into the school, you could look out and see the partitions. You would see the staircase was this bright turquoise color. Anyway, it was kind of a cluttery look if you looked out upon it. And then now if you look at the library, the staircase has this beautiful pale wood that surrounds it. We have these beautiful lights that were amazing initially because they're on the second floor. And if you're in the library, you can look up and see them. Little nooks for kids. And so we're standing by the front door welcoming kids in on the first day. And a couple kids stopped and said, "This is Reiki. This is like a mansion." And for kids that are in a high poverty school that haven't had that, it was just heartwarming. And so I think there's this sense of that we value education and Portland values education. And that's kind of as you walk into the building, that the sense that you get. So truly, truly grateful for the work across the years and where we're at today with the building for our kids.
Thank you so much, Mark and Lisa and Angie and Lori. Just to wrap up, this was not an easy journey, as you heard very poignantly tonight. It took first the community coming together when the city did not want to act, and later the steadfast commitment of our district leadership to see it through. I couldn't possibly thank tonight everyone who needs to be thanked, but I want to recognize a few people. So first, to our building leaders, Angie Taylor, Charlie Marenghi, Lori Babinski, Annie Dolphin, and Nicole Bradine, and all of the custodians, teachers, and other staff at each of the 4 schools who kept the schools open and our students learning throughout the construction. Former Superintendent Javier Batana and former Mayor Ethan Strimling, without whose leadership and hard work, these projects would have never happened. The Harriman team, led by Mark Lee, Lisa Sawan, and Emily Wah. Dave Lewis, our owner's representative. Blaine Casey, Great Falls, and Hardy Pond, our general contractors, and all of the workers who did the physical labor of transforming these schools day by day, year by year. Mayor Mark Dion, who went door to door canvassing with me when the bond was on the ballot and later co-chaired the District Advisory Building Committee with me. Our now retired facilities director, Steve Stilfen, and also retired longtime facility staff, Doug Sherwood. Tamara Sweeney, who now so ably leads our facilities team. Superintendent Scallon and Operations Director Sarah Warren, who are seeing these projects through to their completion. Former school board member Sarah Thompson and Marnie Morion. All of the community members, city councilors, and school board members who served on the District Building Advisory Committee, some for the entire length of these projects, and also the building level advisory committees. And to each person who was involved in passing the bond, who voted for it, or who came around to believe in it after the bond passed. These elementary schools are now worthy of our students and our staff, and it is thanks to you. And with that, we will take any questions you have.
Beautiful. I just also want to give you a huge thank you because it was your vision and your passion that got this started. Thank you. The district and community have benefited so much from this.
Thank you.
What questions do people have? Yes, go ahead.
Other than, I think it was mentioned that some furniture is being delivered, is there anything else that is still being processed?
Oh, it's such a good question. We still have punch lists. So
Yeah.
Lyseth is done, but at the 3 remaining schools, so at Przemysl, Longfellow, and Reiki, there's still final work to be done. We had an issue with the flooring at Przemysl, and so that's going to be replaced. And that is not, we think that that's going to be replaced over the summer because it is just so disruptive to the school year. And then I should have said that we did a ribbon cutting at Lyseth during the pandemic when the school was finished. Even though we finished the Presumscott School last spring, we haven't done a ribbon cutting because of this flooring issue. But I really hope that the board and certainly superintendent and assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, and the whole community will join us when we do ribbon cuttings at the 3 remaining schools at Presumscott, Reiki, and Longfellow. And I don't know if anyone, Tamara or anyone else, wants to talk about the work to be done or what specifics, but we have punch lists. We have their certificates of completion, but there's still various work to finish up. But excellent question.
Board Member Ali?
I really appreciated the outdoor spaces, especially in Lyseth, and the community garden. Was there a reason why I think Reiki or another school that did not have like an outside space for students, or was it just the way the building is and are you working around it? I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm going to try and answer, but please, anyone else, the Harriman team, Lori, please come up and add to my thoughts. But the designs for these schools and what we prioritize is really driven by the community and the priorities for the community. Reiki does have outdoor learning spaces already, and I think they're fairly good spaces. That was maybe the best thing going for the school. So it wasn't a priority when, we still have those spaces now. So it wasn't one of the big priorities for the design phase of the project. I don't know if anyone else wants to.
Yeah, I think you get.
Yeah. I just had a question about the color red. You said it's a passive color or something. Can you tell us more about that? And then Vice Chair Bondo, I see you.
Red floors is
Oh.
The red floors, you said something it related to safety and something else?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, actually, that's one of Lisa's favorite stories. Maybe I'll let her share it.
It's not about the color red, it's about the color change on the floor. And so what we do is we sat through lockdowns at several of the schools, as Mark talked about. And it gave us an understanding as to what it feels like to be an adult, let alone trying to imagine what it feels like to be a kid. And so what the color change does is we look at from the hallway, when you look into a classroom where you can't see, and we change the color of the tile. And that way, because you have kids as young as 4 in pre-K, and just be able to say, get on the red tile. And now they're out of the line of sight of the hallway. So that's what we meant by passive strategy
Got
for
it.
safety and security.
That was really not the information I was hoping. I was hoping it was going to be a happy story. But I am so
Happy
glad
story
that
because they're
people,
out.
yes, they're safe, but it just is so unfortunate that we have to have that. But just glad that you're aware of that as a tool.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have just one small question and mostly comments. And I think I just want to know if I saw some of the classroom, I see that they were empty. Just want to make sure they're all furnished. We have all the supply, everything, equipment we need for the students on those new areas and classrooms.
Yeah, I'll take the furniture. So you want me to take the furniture? Yeah, it's the first question. So we're waiting on the furniture.
Are we still
Not
within
all of
the
it, but we're waiting on the furniture. That's where, so we have there was a lot of, I think, desks purchased back with ESSER funds. So that's a non-issue, right? But some of the furniture like you see at Lyseth, in the little cubby spaces, and even in the cafeteria, I think I hear 6 weeks is when we're pretty excited about that furniture. So in 6 weeks, we should be able to see that furniture and you'll even see a difference, I think, in buildings when you walk in.
Right, thank you.
And Board Member Bondo, just to be clear, there's old furniture in those classrooms. It's not like we have empty classrooms. We need all of those classrooms, every single one of them.
Understand.
But the furniture is really needed, and it's been another challenge that these schools have had to grapple with as we had to we had to wait on ordering the furniture until we knew where the construction budget would end up. So we were being really conservative with our funds to make sure that we could finish the project. So it has been another real challenge for the schools to deal with. Now they have new spaces, but not really the furniture for them.
Yeah, see, I've been there when the project starts, so that's just my comment, just really recognizing where you've been really sticking on that project, and I really want to appreciate you, both Victor, about that vision, and I think it's going to be one on your legacy, so kudos to you, because that's exactly what the 21st century is really representing to our new community, and I think when we talk about the social emotion, I think is going to be one of the foundation also for those 4 schools to be really a place where students come and really start rebuilding their social emotion just by see what they have and be comfortable by learning. So I'm so grateful to be proud of that. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you for
Mono.
all the things.
So grateful for you to be part of it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from folks? Okay, seeing none. Thank you all. Board members, we are at 9 o'clock. So I know we have executive session tonight. Would anyone be opposed to moving the strategic plan workshop to a special meeting? So a special meeting would be a meeting that we would call, it would be a public meeting. It would just be at a different time outside of a board meeting to do this workshop on the strategic plan. I think I'm hesitant. I want our brains to be awake for the executive session. And I think I don't want to rush the strategic plan conversation. So it would be adding another meeting probably in the next week or so. Okay, I see no, are you okay with that? Okay, beautiful. So then I'm just gonna kind of like run through our other logistics and things on the agenda tonight. So I will give the opportunity for public comment, as this is a public meeting that is not budget related. If there's anybody on Zoom that would like to give public comment, please raise your Zoom hand. I don't see anybody here in the room. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Just a couple of notes from me that since the last time we met, the board has gathered for retreat where we began to create a series of norms for our work and the ways that we interact with each other in the community. And we also took a deep dive into all things budget related. Student representatives also met for their orientation, which was awesome. And they brought so many thoughtful insights and immense curiosity about how to involve themselves as much as possible. And I just am really appreciative to all the time and energy that people are giving right now and over the course of the next few months as we work to get a budget passed. Outside of the budget, I'd like to send congratulations to the cast of Wonka at Casco Bay High School, all of the students who participated in the District 2 Music Festival that was held at Deering High, and the Deering High debate team because they won the state championships. So yeah, representing across the district. I love it. Oh, did I take away all of your glory?
I mean, I like to not think all, but like pretty close tonight, pretty close.
Sorry, Ryan, you just keep up with the bad news. No, I'm just kidding. And tonight we had Portland Adult Education who was supposed to give the report, but Julie couldn't actually make it tonight. So I think next time, because we've had the student orientation, students know what to expect, we'll be back on track with those. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Scallon for any remarks that you have.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually going to keep my marks pretty brief tonight. I've already taken up, I saw that. I've already taken up a lot of time, but we'll keep them brief. But we did want to provide an update on the high school preference and where we landed and finalized the high school placements for next year. And so I'm going to pass that to Deputy Superintendent Townsend as he really led this work and helped us move forward.
Great. So excited to share the update. Just as a reminder for context, back in the fall of 2022, the board passed a resolution kind of directing us to continue to kind of make improvements to our high school enrollment process with the goal of trying to work towards balanced enrollments, both in terms of overall size and as well as demographics across our two comprehensive high schools. So for the past 2 years, we've been kind of implementing a structure towards that end. It has one of the primary, a couple of features of that. One is trying to deprioritize kind of the showmanship of the schools, right, and have kind of consistent processes for students and families to gather information about the 3 different schools. So we've been holding system-wide, high school information nights, had the walkthroughs so families could have an opportunity to access and see the space, but a shift from kind of the broader open house that were big events required lots of time and energy from school staff, and from the feedback we got from families ultimately weren't big drivers in terms of student and family decision making. So we've been implementing a system, a new kind of technology system as well, to be able to kind of ensure we're able to collect information from students in a timely way to be able to drive kind of our process. And what we've done, the big shift has been moving from a space where it was outside of Casco, which has a limited enrollment, as we know, intentionally by design. It was kind of wide open. Anybody could choose. Wherever you chose, you got to go. And the historical context of that is it led to significant swings in terms of enrollment from year to year. And that really challenged kind of program stability, staffing stability that negatively impacted the schools. So part of what the adoption was in October in 2022 was that we would prioritize, the resolution calls for giving at least 90% of students their first choice, but that retains some flexibility for us to reassign students if we were concerned about the enrollments and that they'd lead to disparities such that it may impact staffing and kind of program stability. So last year, our first year, amidst all the upheaval, this was one little shining bright spot where we almost came out exactly on the nose, even between the 2 schools. So it was a great first effort. And this year was still a strong follow-up. So we're excited after kind of reviewing all the data. A huge shout out to the teams. I want to recognize Pamela Atuno, our Director of Secondary Access and Outcomes, who really captained, this process. Our data team for creating the tools and forms that families engaged and used. We had a multilingual night, and it was just the opportunity. I was brushing off my Spanish, working with this family that speaks Spanish, and they were able to call up the text. He got on his thing in Spanish, clicked on the link. The form was in Spanish, completed it right there. It took all less than 3 minutes. And so appreciations for them to be able to enable tools that allow all families to kind of access the process. And then the school teams at the middle schools, the counselors really being dogged and making sure we had over more than 97% of students complete their high school preference forms. And then the high school teams for organizing, for the presentations, being present in the month of December, holding the walkthroughs on a Saturday. So it's a real team effort, even despite the ways we've kind of tried to narrow that and reduce the burden on our teams. But that's led us to the place where we're excited that we're confident in the enrollment numbers that we have. I have those in the next slide, that all students who indicated Deering or Portland as their first choice have been assigned to those schools for the coming year in 9th grade. We are, because there is a little bit more of a gap between Deering and Portland, as you'll see. So moving forward, any new enrollments, students who newly enroll as 8th graders over the remainder of the year will be assigned to Portland High until the enrollment is more balanced. So that'll serve to both balance the overall numbers and kind of level up the demographics a little bit, as the preponderance of those students are typically students who may be coming in as multilingual students, and so we'll create a little bit more parity. But overall, I think we're happy with how the numbers played out in terms of the initial preferences. So I don't have it. Yes, I can't click it. So we had, out of the first choice preferences, we actually had 120 students who indicated Casco as their first choice. So as is called for in the process, we ran the Casco lottery, capped that number at 105. We do expect that students, unless they meet one of the criteria for appeal, will attend the school they're assigned for ninth grade. So we have a smaller number of students that we assign at Casco, and then students who fell out of that, knowing, what their second choice was, they got their second choice. So nobody's in the case of, for a family that may have selected Casco first, kind of being at their third choice. So these are the numbers that as they're playing out as we're moving forward. Again, overall, given that Portland High currently sits about 100 students larger, right? We were comfortable with some greater number on the Deering side in this phase. And we know that with the additional enrollments, it fluctuates dramatically from year to year, how many potential enrollments we have, but we estimate it's in the neighborhood of at least 15 to 20 potentially, somewhere in that range that will have enrolled before the start of school. And it'll kind of close that gap significantly and also balance those demographics and be able to maintain the current freshman class at Portland High and at Deering. Both are right about 200. And so we're confident in kind of the programmatic structures that we've been working on, and our ninth grade teams will be able to sustain and be able to continue that work. So assignment letters went in the mail on Monday to families, met the deadline of February 5th. Huge shout out to Emily Crocker, the executive assistant, who probably had more than one paper cut because we did send them paper in this effort. And so families should be getting those, and we're excited to move into this next phase. They got welcome letters to their new schools, and then there'll be kind of onboarding and engagement opportunities that schools do to start to enroll and kind of engage students to be the class of 2028. So excited to share this update. So.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Townsend, for your work and for the team's work, and for the update on this and the good news about people getting their first choice, and still pretty closely balanced. So thank you for that. That concludes the comments for tonight.
Beautiful. And yeah, just echoing gratitude from where we were 2 years ago to where we are now about this process. It's just awesome to see. So thank you for all your work on that. So up next, we have the report of the secretary. We have the consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of January 16th, 2024. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes? Just double check Zoom. Okay, seeing none, then the minutes are approved as distributed. Up next, we have our consent items. Deputy Superintendent Townsend, take it away.
Great. Under Board Policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district of durable goods of significant value and of symbolic importance. As required by policy, all of the donations are listed in the board memo by name and donation accompanying this item. Our practice is that each donor receives a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude and for their tax purposes. So with that, I would like to thank the following contributors. April Libby of Portland donated winter jackets for student use at the Gerald D. Talbot Community School. And April and Dennis Noonan of Portland donated Hannaford gift cards to support the inventory of the Portland High School food pantry. Thank you to those contributors. We're very grateful for your support.
Thank you. And then up next, we have new business. So we have a couple of first reads tonight that we're going to do workshops on. Deputy Superintendent Townsend, is there anything you want to say now before we get to the workshops?
No, I think we'll hold the comments for the workshop.
Okay, beautiful. And in case anybody missed it, we're going to schedule a special meeting to do the workshop on the strategic plan just because it's getting so late. So with that, let's go ahead and move into the workshop for the affirmative action policies.
Great. I think I'll just, okay. Great. Want to just first, as we jump in, acknowledge the contributions of the People and Equity team. They really led this work. So under Barrett's leadership, but want to shout out our Director of Labor Relations and our Affirmative Action Officer, Richard Moore, our Student Equity Officer, Tyler Schwaller, and our Director of BIPOC Career Pathways, Julia Hazel, for helping support and engage in this process of the proposed revisions. So this month's work related to policy was related to people and equity work broadly. And so the policies that we have in front of you for revision and adoption, hopefully at our next meeting, include AC, our affirmative action policy, and then one that we've been aspiring to get to. So excited to be having come forward at the board level. Finally, for adoption and revision is the staff harassment, discrimination, and sexual harassment policy. So we'll speak briefly to each of these policies and take any questions folks may have. And thank you to the policy committee members for meeting recently to kind of walk through these changes together and kind of continue to support this work. So for policy AC, the changes that you see in kind of the draft attached in the business item, it does a couple of things. So some of the primary changes there include updating some changes from the Maine Human Rights Act that addresses hair traits. So we've seen this now showing up kind of consistently in terms of adoption across a few of our policies. So that's incorporated here, and we've incorporated updated definitions for sexual orientation and gender identity. So I appreciate that was a revision that we discussed in the policy committee and kind of bringing forward as part of this adoption. So those are most of the kind of substantive ones, is aligning to some of that updated language and kind of definitions. We've attached, to the workshop item here. It's not a business item, but just so folks have it, kind of an updated affirmative action plan that is kind of corresponds with our affirmative action policy. So we discussed that some at the committee level, but it's not an action item for us in terms of adoption, but just wanted, as part of the spirit of our work this year, of both updating kind of policies and kind of bringing visibility to some of the required plans that we have and kind of where those stand, wanted to just have that available for folks tonight. So I'll pause there on just kind of to see if there are any questions about the proposed revisions to the affirmative action policy, AC.
Any questions from the board? Okay, let me just double check with Vice Chair Bondo. I don't see any questions.
Great. Okay. And of course, we'll be coming back to these at second read at the February 27th meeting and, have further discussion there. So policy ACAB and its related procedure, ACAB-R, has to do with the harassment, discrimination, and sexual harassment of school employees. So I want to acknowledge this is a policy that we've desired to kind of bring forward revisions to for some time. As folks on the board will remember, certainly Member Figdor, who participated at the time, we had a deep substantive process to revise the student harassment and discrimination policy. And it always felt like the staff one was the next one. And certainly that was, it has been on the radar, but was fueled as well by the publication of our Educator of Color report. It was one of kind of the action items as a system amongst a number of things that we've been able to advance in terms of addressing the experiences of not only our educators of color in the system, but all of our, educators and however they may identify, to be able to ensure we're providing the kind of space and climate for them to be their best selves, to do the great work for kids that they came here to do. So, but obviously there have been challenges to kind of have the capacity to kind of dedicate to engage in this way. And so glad that we're finally here to be able to bring forward these revisions. So one, just process wise, I mean, in addition to our, our regular process of consulting with Drummond in terms of legal review and our own kind of organizational review, Julia and Tyler conducted focus groups with both our BIPOC and LGBTQ plus affinity groups for input around the policies. So appreciate those folks for engaging and helping inform the drafts you see in front of you. In terms of substantive changes, we really had the spirit to model and bring forward much of the language that sits in the student harassment and discrimination policy. We wanted kind of consistency in terms of vision and intent, and some of the kind of processes that are articulated there. So you'll see that in both the policy as well as in the procedure, many kind of changes to make those, obviously making it, specific to staff where that's appropriate, right? And removing the references to students, but many of the kind of spirit of it is the kind of spirit we want to live for all of our staff and students. Again, incorporated those revised definitions that shows up here as well as it did in the policy AC that I just spoke about in terms of the state and federal language. And then completed the revisions to the complaint procedure to align to the state and federal requirements as well as to kind of our practices and kind of spirit of the ACAA, which is the Student Harassment and Discrimination Policy. And some of that specifically, just the state and federal requirements speak specifically to kind of the Title IX processes that had been absent from the staff complaint procedure previously. And so we've incorporated that here, as they exist now and in similar ways that they exist, in the student one because they're similar kind of processes. So they are where they are now. There are pending changes to Title IX that we do hope get adopted. So, we would look forward to bringing forward revisions if and when those are incorporated by the Biden administration, potentially later this year. But for now, we wanted to make it current with the current statute and have those processes in place. So, that's substantively both, changes to the policy as well as to the complaint procedures. So I'll pause there.
No, Tyler told me today that Title IX moved to OEOB, so it is seeming like those updates are actually going to happen this year, probably late spring.
Okay. Good. That'll be good. We find, I think they will benefit students and staff in the ways that they're proposed for changes, but we'll grapple with that once that's formalized.
Any questions from the board? I just had, go ahead. Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, just to really appreciate this work. I know when we worked on the version of this policy focused on students, the intention was to take up I think we were like, okay, well, what about the staff? And then there's just so many demands on your time. And so just really I wasn't as close to this process, or I wasn't close at all to this process. And so just appreciating the work. So thank you.
Barrett and their team. So.
Yes. And I apologize, I didn't get quite through the recording of this meeting, but I know you were talking about a potential confidential reporting system for staff. Do you have a sense of like a timeline on when that would be available, or we're not even to kind of like timeline thinking about that?
I mean, that is certainly something that the focus group we talked probably the most about that is just like, how would this work and the logistics of that. I mean, we've had great success with that for students. And so, we sort of have a template for how we would manage that. And so, it's really about how we put that in place, communicate it to staff and those sort of things. And then making sure we have the management of who lines that up correctly, just like we've done for students. So, so I would say, not this school year, but, leading into next school year, that would be something that's very reasonable to be doing through the procedure work.
Awesome. Thank you. That's exciting.
And that mirrors a bit of kind of the timeline that we had in terms of the adoption of the ACAA policy, right? In terms of the, identifying, it was a different set of resources there, but, kind of the implementation. So this adoption will tee us up to kind of plan for kind of fulsome rollout, in the coming school year.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you for being here and walking us through these changes. Appreciate it.
Great. So we'll be back for second read and, consideration of approval at the February 27th meeting.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Just want to recognize Julia and Tyler here on screen. So thank you, Julia and Tyler.
Thank you both.
Hanging in late.
Julia and Tyler for all your work.
Yep. So thank you both.
Beautiful. Okay. So next up, we're going to move into executive session. So I'm going to be asking for a motion on that in just a second. But before that, I just wanted to remind all board members that Paths is going to be making dinner for us on the 27th. And so if you come early at 5:30, you get food made by our illustrious students. So I just encourage you to do that for both food and fellowship. Beautiful. So good reminder, and I'll try to text people a reminder as well. 5:30 on the 27th. So now consideration and action to move, to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 4056A, to discuss principal and assistant principal contract renewals for SY 24-25. Is there a motion? Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Figdor. All in favor? And just a reminder, Board Member Grant will not be joining us because of the conflict around staffing issues. So let's move into executive session.
Let's close it, but I think.
Thank you so much. So we're back from executive session. I will be looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Board Member Figdor, seconded by Board Member Opperman. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 10:47 PM. Oh, all those in favor? We'll go back and do that part. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for the assist, Board Member Figdor. Have a good night, everybody.